Welcome to You Voices of Greater Cincinnati. My name is Davion Relafort, and we have a special guest today, Mrs. Kubesch, my teacher.
Well, hi, Davion. Thank you for inviting me on your show.
Yes.
What would you like to know about me?
First, did you think you would become a teacher?
No, actually, I did not think I would become a teacher. Teaching never crossed my mind. I don't have anybody in my family who is a teacher, and I did not go to school to study teaching. So I went to school to learn foreign languages, and I did not think teaching would be a job I would ever have.
What did you want to be when you were not a teacher?
I wanted to work for the airlines, and actually that's what I did first. And I worked for several airlines. The first one was Braniff. It does not exist anymore. The other, after that, I worked for American Airlines, and I remember my first day on the job. I had been trained. I went to Dallas for 10 weeks. I did a lot of studying. I was so excited. I got all these uniforms. And on the first day of the job, I got there and I thought, is this it? And I did not think it was as exciting as I thought it would be. So I think I took the job because I wanted to travel the world and not have to pay for it. But the actual job, I did not enjoy very much. I did a good job, but I decided to go back to school and then become a teacher.
Okay. After you have got all your students' papers done and stuff, is it tiring putting in all the grades?
Is it tiring? It's a lot of work because you have to, the hardest thing is like when you write. Sometimes it's hard for me to read it. It's like you are barely touching, the pencil barely touching the paper, and it is so light. I'm like, what is that, an E? Is that an A? So it makes it, that is the hard part, is reading the writing of the students. And then it does take a lot of time because you want to, as a teacher, what I want to do when I give a test or any homework, it's very important that I give the paper back, that I give it to you. Because you don't want to wait for a quiz for months or two, right? You want to get it the next day. So that's the part. So you have to stay up late and make sure. But it's worth it because this is when I see the work of the students. If everybody does well, that means I did a good job teaching it and everybody understood, right?
Sure.
If everybody didn't do well, I'm like, oh, I need to teach this lesson again. So luckily that never happened. But that's how I measure how well I was able to explain the lesson.
What's it like to be a teacher?
If you love it and if you love your students, then it's a lot of fun. And that is the case for me. For me, I love the middle school. So I taught before that, I taught elementary school, and I didn't think that was fun. They were too little, and I needed to teach them English as a second language, and I couldn't tell if these kindergartners who are not able to speak anything, is it because they're very little, or is it because English is not their first language? So that I did not like that part, but once I came to the middle school, like, oh, this is where I want to be. So then it's fun.
Do you like teaching?
I do. I love it, and the real reason that I love teaching because I love to learn. So sometimes students ask me questions that are hard. Like, for example, they want to do a project. Like several years ago, my students wanted to do I was teaching Japanese, and they wanted to build a Japanese garden. Well, I know nothing about gardening. I had a plastic plant in my kitchen. After 1 year, it turned brown. It's like I killed a dead plant already. So I'm not good at gardening, and when they wanted to do a Japanese garden, I got very excited. But how can I help my students do something that I'm not good at? So then I had to go back and learn. I needed to meet with gardeners. I went to Japan to study Japanese garden, and then when we came back, then we raised the money and we built a huge Japanese garden. So that part is what I love about teaching, because you always have to go back and learn. If you don't like learning, if you don't like reading, probably teaching would not be the right job for that person.
How long have you been a teacher?
So this year would be my 20th year.
If you could teach any other subject in school, what would it be?
Well, right now I teach foreign languages. I teach ESL, I teach Spanish, I taught Japanese, I taught French. If I could teach anything, probably I would say reading, because I got certified in reading and I want kids to be good readers. I love books. I love to read, and I think everybody should be reading books all the time. I would want to bring books that are fun. That's why, do you notice there's a lot of books in my classroom?
Yes.
Yeah, do you notice that I'm putting books anywhere around the building, on top of lockers, on windowsills? Like, take these books, they are free, go home and take them and read them. That's why.
How do you interact with parents?
How do I interact with them? A different way. So I would call them if a student is absent and has been sick. So like 2 days ago, we had a student who fell and broke her leg, and she's not going to come back for 3 weeks. So like I was worried about her and says, okay, I found out that she's in the hospital. Can I come and visit her right now? And she said, well, she's at home right now. Like, great, I will come right now. And so what do you think I took with me when I visited her?
A get well card?
I took get well cards made by her friends. What else do you think I took?
Something that was books.
I took a lot of books. Yes, I took chocolate, I took candy to cheer her up, but I also took books because I figured she would probably be bored and she would need something to read. So I took books, yes. So that's one way I interact with parents. Another way, last Saturday, I don't know if you remember, but I invited parents and I said, you can come and do art with your child. We can decorate the school building and make it beautiful. But sometimes if a child is missing work, then I would call and I say, hey, can your child stay after school and we can make up some work? Because I don't like to see bad grades. So we got to get this done. So that's how I interact with parents. I can meet them at home. I can meet them at school. I can meet them in the hospital where their child is. We can talk by phone. We can communicate by email. So anyway, that it's possible.
What was your first day of teaching like?
My first day of teaching, let me see. Before you become a teacher, you have to do something called student teaching, right? So they are really not your students. So my first day of teaching, I was probably a little bit scared because it's my first time. And I wanted to make sure that my lesson plan was perfect. So I think I remember was being a little bit apprehensive. I want to make sure my lesson goes really well.
What inspired you to be a teacher?
That I love learning. And see, I grew up in a culture that's different from yours, where especially girls, you're not supposed to go to school. You have to get married and stay home. And I wasn't good at any of that stuff. I couldn't cook. I couldn't sew. I couldn't embroider. I couldn't knit. All I wanted to do as a kid was read. And that wasn't something girls should be doing. It's like, get your head out of these books. And I'd have all these books. And I take my cat when I was very little, and I have a book, and I cover my head pretending to be asleep. And I want to read. And I get up very late, and I want to read. And so the only way that literacy and reading and school was acceptable if you were a teacher. So deep in my heart, I always wanted to teach. And I always tutored people, my peers who didn't do well in school. I would help them right before the tests. And like always before an exam, all my friends, suddenly I become very popular because I need help. And I wasn't so sure I would be good at it. Especially my college professors told me you should never go become a teacher. They told me you're too short to be a teacher, and I believed them. And so I didn't teach for a while, and I went back to school, and I felt like that's where my heart was. So I decided to give it a try.
What was your best day at school?
My best day at school, probably when students challenge me and push me to the edge. Like they come up with hard questions. They want to do big projects. Or student says, we want to interview you because we want to learn, or we want to have a talk show, or we want to build a skating rink, we want to build a garden. So whenever children are very curious and they want to do something, I get so excited, and I totally forget that I don't know how to do that skill. But it doesn't matter because I will contact community members and make sure that they help the students. So I love kids who are engaged and want to try new things.
What's one thing you don't like about being a teacher?
Well, probably like you guys, what is it something you don't like about being a student?
the homework.
You don't like the homework? Oh, well, probably for me, if I stayed up very late and having like I'm really tired and I need to grade all the work, or and the grades are due next day, I would say that's probably something that's not what I would like to do. But what else is something you don't like at school or you don't like at home? What is it? Something you don't like when your parents do? What could that be?
Force you to do something.
They force you to do something? Do you always get your way with your parents?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Anything you ask for your parents to give it to you?
Maybe sometimes.
Sometimes. Is there a time when they don't like? I think that's something for me too. When I want to do something and my boss says no, like, oh. So even as teachers, we don't get our way. Like if I wanted to take a class and it's during the school day and I really want to take this class because my student want to do a talk show and I want to learn how to do this. Or there's a class on writing books and my students are working on writing. And I say, can I take that day off? And the boss says no. So we don't like that. That's probably one of the things I don't like, but it's part of life. You don't always get your way.
What do you do in your free time when you don't have a class to teach?
When I don't have a class to teach, I don't think I have a lot of free time. That's one thing about teachers. We don't really have a lot of free time. So in my free time, if I'm not grading work, I would be planning the lesson plan. I look for ways to who am I going to invite to the classroom. Sometimes I come here. I was here last Saturday with parents doing a project. The Saturday before that, I was taking a class. So sometimes I take classes too. I don't take classes in foreign languages because I know those very well, but I take classes where I'm not really proficient. So like the writing process. So if I want to have creative writing, I'm not a language arts teacher. I may have to take a class in that.
What's your biggest strength of being a teacher?
The greatest strength, I think the greatest strength of a teacher is that you have to be open-minded to new things. So I can't say, today, this is my lesson. I have to teach this, or my way or the highway. That doesn't work. If you are flexible, and sometimes I make a great lesson plan, but I don't get to teach it. Like if I have a student who something bad happened, I can't say, well, I have to teach my lesson anyway. So I think being flexible, that is one way. Being patient, that's very important. Growing up, I was not patient at all. But my dad one day sat me down and he says, you can be patient. I'm like, no, I can't be patient. And I thought about it. And he said, yes, you can. Another thing, when I was a kid, I used to be late all the time for anything. And my dad says, it's as easy to be late as it is to be on time. And I thought hard about it. And it turns out it's true. So every day I'm here very, very early. So it's possible. You can do those things. If you tell yourself you cannot do something, then you will never be able to do it. If you tell yourself, oh, of course I can. I will try and I'll give it all my abilities. I'll do my best. And you will be able to. So for me, the greatest strength that I have is being open-minded, being able to take students' ideas into account and listen to students. So being a good listener is very important. Being patient is important. And being flexible is also very important.
What was your worst day of teaching?
I don't know that it's the worst day of my teaching, but it had to do with teaching. So I think it was last summer or the summer before. One summer, I was taking a class and I know exactly where I was. I know exactly what I was wearing. And I had my phone on the table, and the director of this school gave us a name of a student that I had, and she said that student passed away. And I didn't make a sound. The classroom had a lot of people in it. There were other teachers. And I put my head on the table, and then I lifted my head up, and there was a puddle of tears, and I ruined everything that I had written in my notebook. And I lifted my head up and tried to act normal. And then my total shirt got wet and I had tears that streamed down from my face. I didn't pay attention that day to any of the things that my teacher said. So that helps me when I go to school. I can understand students that sometimes they cannot pay attention if there's something else going on. And so for me, that was what was going on. I think that was the worst news the worst day. It was hard to bear. I cried for many days. And every time I thought about it, it was the same thing. So I grew up not showing emotion. So sometimes people feel like, aren't you excited you got this? Or aren't you shocked by this? I don't show that emotion, but I feel it very intensely. I remember my eyes burned so much. It felt like rubbing alcohol on right here. It just hurt so much. And I started washing my face. My face got puffy. My eyes got puffy. I had, of course, makeup everywhere. And that was very sad. And that was very hard.
How different from being a teacher back then is different from now?
From the time I started
Yeah.
teaching to now, there was a lot of changes. When I started teaching, the biggest deal they were telling to do was cooperative learning. You want the students to work together. Now I think that's not as important, but there's a lot more testing than I remember. And you know, some of the tests are not required, and that's what we don't like as teachers. Like, we want to feel like what we give you to do is very meaningful. Some of the tests are not required, but there are testing companies that they want to have tests to improve making their test, and that takes a lot of time. And so I feel like there's now so much more testing, a lot more a lot less opportunity to do things that you want to do. With students used to be, we did more fun things, we did activities, maybe more field trips, maybe more guest speakers. And now I feel like, oh no, I can't waste another moment of my class because it's already been taken. So I don't know which one is better, but it's one of the things that I have seen completely changed. Are any of you interested in becoming teachers someday?
No, I already have an idea in mind. I've had it in my mind for a while.
What is that?
Making video games. Me and my brother, we have the kind of the same little deal. He wants to be a game animator. I want to be a game maker.
Okay. And what do you want to do?
I still don't got plans for that.
Are there anything that you may be thinking about? Anything at all?
Not right now.
Is teaching a possibility for you?
Maybe.
Maybe. What would you teach if you were going to teach? What subject would you pick?
Math.
Math? If you were going to teach.
If I were to teach, which is very unlikely because I can't get along with kids that well, they're younger than me. I don't know why.
But that's
just a
because
weird
you're a
thing.
kid, you're not getting along with kids. But you know, by then you would be an adult working with kids like you are right now.
Yeah, but still. Either way, if I were to become a teacher, I would want to teach science.
Okay, what
Because-
sounds fun?
So I would like to teach science because one, it's one of my favorite classes. Because I get to do projects, like little experiments.
Mhm.
I just think it's a little fun to do that. Even though you have to be cautious of it, so you don't have to make a mistake.
Okay, we are allowed to make mistakes as long as it's
And
follow rules, right?
No, as long as it doesn't include doing no chemicals or nothing.
Oh, that's true. All right. Well, it was very nice talking with you, and thank you for inviting me on your show.
Same to you. Thank you for letting us interview you.
That was Youth Voices of Greater Cincinnati. Until next time.